I think it's very important to say, especially with endurance sports, your appetite is suppressed, and that is absolutely normal. What you need to do is to be very disciplined about delivering some sort of calories. In that situation, when you're in that moment where you feel like, oh, I don't want to eat anything, liquid version. So it's either protein, shake. It doesn't have to be if you don't do supplementation, but what you can have, you can mix a banana and oats in milk, just a liquid form. So it's about discipline because you're just not going to feel hungry. If you're already feeling like, I don't want to eat, then you're very likely just to go to bed and not do it. But then you're going to pay the price next day and then it's going to keep repeating. So it's more like discipline in saying to yourself, yeah, I need some calories in.
Hey, what is up? Welcome back to Last Stroke Counts. Today we have two returning guests for a themed episode. And the theme of today's episode is REDS, Nutrition and Low Energy Availability. Please welcome Gosia Bieniek from Light Blue Clinic and Susie Deer to the podcast. Susie, formerly of Rogia.
And a British rower.
And the British rower. We can cut that into post-production.
No, Susie's so well known, everyone knows who she is.
We've had her on 2 times. We had Gosia on 2 times.
We've had you both on 2 times, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Which
Okay.
is really cool. No, this is the perfect panel.
Hopes.
Again, we talked about this last time, didn't it? But like, as two blokes in rowing, it's slightly awkward to talk about these things, but it's something that's being talked about a lot more. And I think it's super interesting, certainly for a lot of people who listen as well. Even if you're not a woman, if you coach and all sorts of different things for that. So I think I'm glad we've got you guys on to come and do it. I think we're going to let you kind of lead the way on this one, and maybe we'll ask some questions along the way. But yeah, no, it's really thanks for coming down, and yeah, I think it'll be a fun one.
Yeah, it's definitely fair to say that Tom and I aren't experts on menstrual cycles, so we'll pass this one over to you two.
We'll talk more about nutrition this time, and then kind of the menstrual cycle problems just come with it afterwards. Susie, I actually need an athlete who will tell us more about the story. Your story, first of all, with REDS and nutrition and performance, because that will give us a bit more context into what I'm trying to do and kind of give to broader community of coaches and athletes. So if you could just briefly tell us your story with performance and nutrition.
Where shall I start?
Maybe just general training when you were actually eating and training, and how did that look like in the sense of like you would have training, what would you have for breakfast, what would you have for dinner, etc. And then how did that start to change and why?
Okay. So need to just think back quite a few years now.
Sorry.
So I think when I was rowing, I was sort of in that kind of era where, I was quite aware of what I was weighing on the scales. But I think at the time we all thought it was normal to sort of try and be as light as we could. But having said that, I don't really sort of ever having a memory of sort of thinking about how many calories are in each meal. I'm quite afraid to say I'm quite a fussy eater, so I sort of ate what I liked and what I knew would be sort of okay from a training and recovery perspective. So a typical day for me when I was sort of at like the pinnacle of my sport, of the sport of rowing, I would probably have for breakfast just like some toast and jam, or toast and peanut butter and a banana. I would then have for second breakfast like eggs and toast and overnight oats, or maybe like baked beans on toast, something like that. I would always try and have like carb and protein. Lunch, so I'm vegetarian, which isn't, I guess, the easiest as a athlete. I just hate eating meat, so it was the better way around for me. Lunch would be, gosh, I don't know now, thinking about it, maybe like jacket potato with like corn mince, or like a pasta salad, that kind of thing. Not gonna lie, I would probably polish off like a big bar of chocolate in the afternoon.
And that is absolutely fine. You're human.
Like I would never go to like the like single portions of chocolate or crisps in the shop. I would go straight to like the family aisle and just polish off a whole big bag.
What, the pack for 6?
Oh yeah, easy. Like you'd go for the pack for 6, thinking, yeah, I need a bit of portion control here, and then eat the whole bags of 6.
Big time. Tesco tiramisu serve 6. Does it to be 1 plus to training 6 hours a day?
Yeah, exactly. Just eat whatever.
Eat what you want.
But I think realistically, actually looking back on it, I wasn't eating enough earlier on in the day, and then I was having a massive dip, and then just thinking, what can I get in me? Quickly shove in a load of chocolate or sweets or whatever. And then for dinner, I would have like just the classics, like spag bowl, macaroni cheese, lasagna, like carbs and cheese, and like try and get some form of protein in as well. So yeah, that was what a typical day would look like. I think probably get onto it as the podcast goes on, but when I was trying to recover from Red S, I would be a lot more aware of what I was eating. So that's probably what I would have sort of like when I wasn't aware of my fatigue and the issues that came with it. As time went on, and I guess as I became a slightly more mature athlete, when I was more aware of what I was putting into my body, I would really try and have like as much fruit and veg as I possibly could in every meal time. I tried to have 3 portions, like first breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, dinner, and also snack on it. I would be much more aware of the types of protein I put into my body. So I think lazy me would sort of be what I first said. But as time went on, I would try and be a lot more sort of aware of making sure I was getting sort of the right antioxidants, right proteins, right carbohydrate. That yeah, I definitely wasn't always that sort of version of myself.
I mean, that sounds very structured, and you being aware of the fact that protein would come into play and help with recovery as well is great. I know as a vegetarian or vegan, it's much more difficult to get the quantity of protein that you need. It can be done. It just needs more logistic and discipline and planning and kind of thinking how much you have to eat. So what's happened? Because that sounds like a good picture. Like you were aware of what is needed for training, what is needed for recovery. What's changed?
In what change in terms of what?
In a sense of like when you started to get the symptoms of low energy availability and Red S, were you actually able to communicate? I'm jumping straight to the point, but were you actually able to communicate that with the coaches? Was there anyone that you can talk to, or did you just stop eating less and just carry on because the focus was on lean mass? And
I think it's probably really helpful if I share sort of like how it evolved. So I learnt to row at Oxford Brookes, and the younger athlete, I thought that the easiest way to go faster would be to be lighter. So, you know, there was little to no focus on like my physiology or technical sort of gains that could be made. I simply thought, okay, what's a quick win? Try and be light. So even though I was sort of having big meals and things like that, even though it just wasn't enough going off how much training we were doing. As I became a bit more of a mature athlete, rewind again. I then, when I left Brookes, went to Leander, there was a few things going on in my personal life, which basically meant I stopped eating. And I think that was the start of my Red S. I think, you know, there were a few bad habits that I had from my earlier life as a rower, and they were sort of, exaggerated, I guess, when I had these issues popping up in personal life. And yeah.
When you mean stop eating, do you mean like eat less, or do you mean really stop eating?
Really just, there'd be days I thought, I haven't actually eaten today. And, you know.
Sorry, so you did start with like skipping meals, or did you go straight from like I'm stressed and not eating?
I guess I had so much on my mind, I just didn't think to eat. And if I feel really I guess like stupid in some ways that I just forgot to eat because it's such a basic human need. But you know, I would have done 2 training sessions and thought, oh my god, I've only had a coffee. And you know, I don't know what I expected. You wouldn't not put fuel in your car and expect it to get to where you need to go.
It's quite common. Don't feel bad that you're the only person in that situation, because it's actually quite easy to suppress.
I just wasn't hungry.
The hunger.
I just wasn't hungry, and I didn't want to eat. So it wasn't that I was, actively thinking, I'm not going to eat today. I just had so much on my mind. It didn't really occur to me. And obviously there were days where I would, but if you're doing 3-session day and you've only had, some toast, it's not really enough. So I then started having symptoms of Red S. Like looking back on it, I can now understand it as symptoms of Red S. I'm sorry. So yeah, when I started having the symptoms of Red S, it would be like, for me, it came out in my skin. I got very dry skin. My hair was falling out. It was very straw-like. I was obviously very skinny. I would cry all the time. Like I was so exhausted. I didn't really have any tolerance to anything. I think I said earlier, like I started to feel quite numb. Like when I was training, like it felt like all I could do was just go through the motion. Like I could never pace a 2K, or I could never pace a race or pace a piece. It would be, right, I'm going to start this race and I'm just going to hang on until this race is finished. It was a bit like throwing shit at a wall and hoping it sticks. There was little to no planning. It was like, I'm just going to turn up and try hard and it will be what it will be. But I think the unfortunate thing for me was that it was working.
Yeah.
I was performing from a performance perspective. I was doing really well. I was getting PBs on everything. I was making boats go fast. I was winning medals. That year I got the bronze medal at World Cup and I won 2 Henry Royal Regatta medals on the same day. So it didn't really weigh up. But I think psychologically I knew that it was such an important season and we had all been through so much as a team at Leander. I wanted to push on for the person behind, person in front, and they were doing the same for me. So I felt like we were really in it together. But after I crossed that finish line on the Sunday of Henley, I've never been the same athlete again. And I feel like I've got massively sidetracked here. And I haven't actually answered your first question, but so as I realised I was starting to, have this Red S, and I communicated it with coaches, and I don't know whether we'll come into that later on, but that's when I started to think, okay, what can I control here? Nutrition should be the first thing. So, had help from nutritionists, did a lot of reading around supplements that I needed, how to maximize my performance through nutrition. And that's when I started to think, okay, right, antioxidants are going to be great for me, more protein, more carbohydrate, timing of it all. Obviously that's your area of expertise, but definitely nutrition helped sort of recover from that, Reds.
Sure. I'm sorry I had to go through that. It's not, and also the fact that not only you're aware that you're not eating enough, but your scores are actually high and you're performing as you should perform. So it's everything against what we are being taught in terms of, okay, we know that the athlete is not eating enough, so technically the athlete should underperform. And in your case, it was the other way around. So I can see how difficult it is to miss that and to be drawn into that. Well, actually, it's not that bad. I keep going until you realize that
exactly
actually you can't anymore. Right?
And I mean, don't get me wrong, the scores did come crashing down.
Sure.
But
eventually, of course,
it was so unsustainable. But at that moment, I was kind of completely sort of blinded by my health and the longevity of my behaviors, by the fact I'm getting a PB on my 2K, by the fact, I'm getting selected to race internationally and then I'm going on to win a medal internationally. It was such a whirlwind, really, looking back at it. On one hand, I was so unhealthy, but on the other hand, I was achieving everything that I had set out to try and do. But yeah, I mean, it most certainly did come crashing down.
When you started crashing, was there any help from the coaches? Was there anyone who said to you, listen, this is what we have to do, this is the doctor that you have to see? Was there any kind of awareness over the fact that you actually need help?
So what am I trying to say? So when I first started becoming unwell, I had been invited to train full time with the British rowing team. It was the start of a new Olympiad, so obviously everyone sort of started with loads of enthusiasm, really excited for like the next 3 years, I guess, because it was in 2021. And I feel like I massively just slipped through the net, to be honest. Like, I'd left Leander, where the coaches there had been incredible. Like, they had supported me a lot through that year of things going on, and so they really did look after all of us throughout like COVID and all the rest of it. But then when I went to the British team, I would be lying if I said I was well supported.
Okay.
There wasn't much help.
I just on that point as well, like, how long is it between you feeling like something was wrong and like the first mention of Red S? Because I think at this time as well, like, it wasn't known about, talked about. It probably was known about outside of the rowing circle, but like, was that quite a long time?
I think how long ago was this now? What, 4 years ago? So I think I often think as an athlete, your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness. So I think I knew about it far longer than for a much longer period of time until I started flagging it. I knew something was up, but I didn't want to communicate it. So I kept pushing on, which is a great strength as an athlete. You always want to push on, you always want to be faster. But equally, it was my greatest downfall, because I think if I put my hand up earlier, then it may not have escalated to be such an issue. But I mean, from communicating it with the coaches at Caversham, and then from support actually happening, it took my face was physically swelling up because my eczema was so bad, and not much happened until I had such severe external sort of symptoms that my body was clearly really struggling. So it probably was only a few weeks, but it did also take quite an extreme sort of reaction for help.
Was it
like
happiness? From a physical reaction for people to actually do something about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen the photo. The swelling was crazy.
Yeah, it's like a completely different person.
I remember I went to A&E and people were sort of looking at me like, "Oh, you okay?"
Fine, I'm in training.
Yeah. Like, I can't really see because my eyes are so swollen, but
I'm actually one of the fittest people on the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't look like it.
Yeah. I just got stung by 30 bees on the way.
Okay, so what was done to recover? So how was your recovery from that point? Because obviously that was the lowest point. I hope that was the lowest point, and there's nothing else.
It was very up and down, to be honest.
So from this point, you've seen a doctor and been told what Red S was. So based on what you knew at the time, like, what had you been told was like the way forward, I guess?
I guess at the time, it was quite hard to sort of be pragmatic because I was so exhausted and I had just lost my place on the British team and emotions were running pretty high. But what I could understand of it at the time was that I had sort of been underfed and overtrained, and I needed to spend a serious amount of time to recover, to refuel and just sort of let my body kind of rebalance in order to be able to carry on training. The physiologist was really helpful, and despite not being on funding, they did sort of steer me in the right direction in terms of what my training should look like, and it should be very much led by how I'm feeling rather than there being a program and I have to do it regardless of sort of how I'm feeling. So it was very sort of led by myself. So like what my waking heart rate was, what my perceived shape was, all that kind of stuff. But I was also told that I really needed to target the April GB trials. So I felt like I was constantly torn between, okay, I need to take time and I need to let my body lead what this next period of time looks like. But on the same hand, I was like, but I've got to be better by April. So, it was quite conflicting advice.
You can't put a deadline on like how your body's going to feel, right?
Exactly. And, I went back to Leander, and the coach there, Ross Hunter, was really, really good at supporting me. Particularly initially, it was a very hard time. Like all of my teammates who I just spent the last 4 years with at Leander were on the team, and I was then there sort of with a new squad to get to know, whilst also navigating. Looking back was probably the biggest challenge in my rowing career. But yeah, Ross was brilliant at sort of helping me through that time. And I
Can he's definitely listen to this.
yeah, shout out to Ross.
Yeah, shout out, Rossi. Come back on.
But yeah, it was a slow process, like a session for me could be 20 minutes on the erg, like 30 splits off what I would ordinarily have been doing. When I say I had to strip it right back, like I had to strip it right back. And I just, Ross used to say, your body doesn't know what score you're doing, it only knows how hard it's working. And that's something that has stayed with me. So I just, I really think during that time, I kind of trusted that process of just got to put the building blocks in place for, the outcome to happen. But then, I did I'll be completely honest, after about 2 or 3 months, I thought, right, great, I'm feeling brilliant. Let's switch back onto a performance program. And that's where I went wrong. So then, no surprise, I then did too much too soon. And the next season was again a complete write-off. So the next period of time, basically what I'm trying to say was pretty up and down. I was constantly stuck, felt like between like a bit of a rock and a hard place of trying to trust my body, but also was like very aware that trials was here, World Championships was here and being pushed by a deadline. I don't know where to stop with sort of what my recovery looks like. We could go into it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that would be a really good time then to ask to get Gosia to kind of explain RED-S. And then I guess the good question to explain like why RED-S makes recovery different from just being tired. Like what's the separation between just being, I was a bit tired and I did a bit of recovery. And then what you said, like, a couple months chill and then I'll just jump back on the program. Like, why does it differ?
I think it's much more complex than just eating the right amount of food. Once you're kind of in that red zone when you're already not eating enough, it's very difficult to come back on the other side. So if you don't have a specific plan, meaning talking to your GP, getting your blood work done, a body scan, actually seeing how much muscle mass there is, what's your bone density, tracking your menstrual cycle. I'm guessing at that point you had absolutely no menstrual cycle as well. So if the plan is not in place, done by multidisciplinary team, I actually don't really like that word, but like doctor being in charge who understands the problem, nutritionist and S&C coach working together. Because from the dryland point of view, what you have to do is to start working on the hypertrophy, so increasing the muscle mass as much as you can. That way the bone mass density goes up as well. Another thing is volume of training. So that's the conversation that you have to have. And I know we spoke about it. That's the conversation you have to have with the head coach by how much the coach will actually allow you to reduce the volume so the athlete can come back to full-time training, knowing that like long-term, this is our goal, that we want that person to perform on its best and to be healthy. And another thing is menstrual cycle. So when you don't eat enough, menstrual cycle stops first. And what you need to do is a blood test. So you have to you could ask your GP, but you need to start with thyroid, so the TSH and the 4 hormones that govern the menstrual cycle. So it's your LH, FSH, estrogen and progesterone, and DEXA scan. So that should be the tests that have to be done just to determine where you are. And kind of take it from there. There are other ways that you can monitor how you're feeling as well, and like daily logs, just to add to everything else, what you're doing. But that is the way. It has to be much more comprehensive rather than, let's relax and see how you're going to feel, because it has to be attacked from those different angles. So reducing volume of rowing, increasing muscle mass, some more dryland training, eating the right amount of food at the right time, and running a blood test. So these are a blood panel. So these are the 4 things that you have to do in order to kind of know where you are and how we're moving forward, and then retesting it. Otherwise, it's kind of like guessing, right? Yeah. Like you don't know, you're always tired, as you said, you keep pushing, right? And then especially as female athletes, we're so used to pushing until you just can't do it anymore. And I think, thanks for sharing this, by the way. I know it's not easy. But I mean, it's great that we are sharing it to hopefully sort of
raise awareness, educate.
Yeah.
Because it's something that you said there, which resonates with me, that, you know, if it's not led by those sort of tests, you are guessing. And that's literally what I did. Like, I effectively was guessing. And especially when, you know, there's a date in mind, whether that's a competition or a trial or, you know, the start of the next season or whatever it is, you are going to perhaps sort of kid yourself as to how you're feeling when you're pressurized by an event. So yeah, I mean, I look back on my time recovering and I think, oh my God, if only I knew about all of this stuff.
Yeah.
We've all done it. Like, every athlete's done it, coming back from injury too quickly, coming back from illness too, like, obviously it's like you're pushing yourself, you're trying to get somewhere. Like you said, that deadline looms.
Yeah.
It happens.
And like, knowledge is power. Like, you know.
Sure, but also implementing it, right? Because I think obviously knowledge is power, but if you don't have a system in place, or the system, I'm talking about the system in here, but honestly, you do have to have a system, especially at the level that you rode. I mean, at every level it should be, but you kind of would imagine that where you were, that could be the first thing, especially for female athletes, to look after. Sorry, that was not my intention. Well, first of all, do pre-screening. I'm sorry about moving a microphone. I feel like I'm doing all of the wrong things today.
It's all fun.
Moving and looking the wrong direction. So pre-screening is absolutely essential. And just even going through questionnaire and asking open questions. What's your relationship with food? What you eat? Like, kind of even for the athlete to realize what they're eating, how often they're eating, and just starting there, asking about menstrual cycle, asking about body scan. When was your body scan done? And that doesn't have to be anything specific. Obviously, it's sensitive data, so it has to be stored securely. But that has to be like said in the questionnaire. But this is the easiest way to start monitoring the relationship with food, but also how you can help your athletes throughout the season. And that can be done before and like mid-season and then later during the season as well.
With those tests and the blood tests and the body scans and the things you're talking about, what would you be seeing differently from an athlete who doesn't have it? Like, what are the differences that are like, okay, that athlete's got rid of this?
So for body composition is the muscle mass and fat percentage relationship. I think we talked about it as well, that for females, the lowest point of fat percentage is 12 to 14% of fat percentage. That's the lowest. As soon as you go lower, what happens is the first thing that starts is your thyroid is dysregulated, and then your period stops, and then bone mass density starts to drop. So you need to see the fat percentage and you need to see the muscle mass. So these are the first and bone density. So the DEXA scan gives you that, but there is also, I'm not advertising any brand, just wanted to say, but like there is this scale, the Tanita one that you can use, and then it's pretty accurate as well. And we use that for our athletes, male athletes. I work with males, I forgot. For male athletes, and then that's very accurate reading of what's happening with their body composition. So yeah, fat percentage first, and the relationship between fat percentage, muscle mass, and bone density.
So those are things that you could pick up on someone before they showed any symptoms that Susie was. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's sort of proactive rather than reactive.
Rather than waiting for you to be in the lowest point and, and then dealing with it. Right? Yeah. It's like prehab is just in more of a kind of body composition analysis. I don't know, just looking at body composition.
Sure. I was going to ask about, obviously, Susie, you said you had like 2 months off and then you were like, oh, I'll have 2 months off, then I'll probably be okay back. I was going to ask you, Gosia, what are the dangers of doing that when you have red S versus like a normal athlete returning back to training? That would make sense, but this is a different scenario. Could you explain how?
I think it's more the fact that we're not monitoring anything. So we don't know, we're guessing. You could get better, you could not get better, you can get better for a moment.
Could you get worse by returning too quickly?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's like with an injury as well. I think we talked about it. But I think specifically in this particular case, you need to know your numbers. You need to know what you're dealing with. And if the menstrual cycle didn't come back, that's usually the biggest indicator of knowing that you're not ready. So you have to keep increasing muscle mass and kind of working on that. And I know it's very tricky once you're in training program and say to the head coach that, oh, listen, these are the changes. But then we will know long-term eventually that you're not going to carry on like that. So the question is like, do we do it now and attacking when we can actually manage it? Or are we waiting for the athlete to crash? So it's again the kind of performance versus health that we kind of come to.
So would you also say, like, if as a female athlete, if they go under that 12 to 14 percentage, like just for any reason being under that, that's a bad thing, like it shouldn't happen? Or
it shouldn't happen. So this is when the problems with menstrual cycles start. So your body retains that fat percentage for female athletes just for the case of pregnancy. So that's how we wired, right, for giving birth for females. That makes no sense. But basically what I'm trying to say is that with females, because of the endocrine system makeup, that 12 to 14% is a minimum to get pregnant. And that is usually what happens. If we go below, then body focuses on thermoregulation and motion, but shuts down the endocrine system, kind of suppresses it, shuts down. Maybe it's not the best word. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. And my next question then would be like, Susie, from your time in your career, would you say it was like common or uncommon for girls to be under that percentage, like not having menstrual cycles, that kind of stuff?
I think I couldn't really accurately say about the fat percentage because we ever had our skin folds done, then people may not share what their fat percentage was. Excuse me. But from a period perspective, so many of my teammates wouldn't have a period. And I think, I'm aware that I'm a few years out of the sport, and when this was all happening, we're pushing on towards 5 years, and I think awareness and knowledge has developed a lot since then. But I remember having chatting to girls, and when we were all just having a shower, talking about periods. Yeah. Just I was saying, I remember a few of us had been to our GP and said, we're not getting a period anymore. And it was just like, oh, it's just because you're doing loads of sport, it's okay. So it was just sort of like brushed off. And it's like, what if you stop sport, it will come back. And I think, the average GP maybe isn't particularly aware of how much the sport means to you. It's not as simple as, I'll just stop my sport. But B, also actually that it really isn't healthy, even if you are doing a full-time sport, for your periods to not be there. So yeah, and answer your question, I'm not entirely sure about the fat percentage, but lack of periods is definitely quite.
So it's something that's quite common. It's not like 1 in 20 athletes gets it. It's a little bit more prevalent.
I speak for what's now.
I wouldn't know the numbers, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 1 in 5. Like honestly, I think it's for endurance sports, it's so common, and it's not being flagged up until you get to the point where Susie was.
But I think I'm not ashamed to say, because I think it's the reality that actually when your periods go away, it's a faff having a period every day. So you're kind of like, oh, liberation. I'm not having my period. This is great. I don't have to worry about any of that. But actually, it is a bit of a health concern. So I think it's great that there's much more awareness now. And I wish there was kind of that knowledge for me when I was going through it. But yeah, I think it's quite common. Yeah.
So I know you mentioned your coach at Leander. Was there anyone else who was supporting him? I'm thinking about S&C coach or nutritionist. Was there anyone else who could help you with that lowest point, or was it managed mainly by the head coach? I'm just trying to think of what was the structure in place?
So I think
at that stage.
So when I was told to go back to Leander and rehab, there was an S&C coach. She was great. And also having a female there was also really good. There was the head coach, Ross, and the assistant coach, and Rich Chambers. They were all brilliant. But I guess they're all brilliant at teaching a rowing stroke or teaching a weights program. There wasn't a physiologist. There wasn't anyone who could help specifically with women's health. So I felt like from a technical perspective or, like a programming perspective, when you're on a performance program, was great. S&C was great, but it was obviously lacking that knowledge of women's health, signs to show that you're recovering, signs to show that perhaps you're regressing. That side of my recovery was definitely lacking.
Okay, so we've highlighted that,
And
pre-screening could help a little bit more if we have some more solutions. And I understand, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I know it's a male-saturated environment. I understand that, and I'm not pushing male coaches to suddenly start talking about periods with their athletes. It's not kind of. I don't think it would be comfortable for either side. But nominating that one person who you can think would be the most applicable, let's put it this way, to actually start the conversation with athletes and have like a contact point would make a difference. Because I mean, I worked with Richard. There was an overlap when I worked for CBC Men. So Richard was his second coach. So that was 2018, 2019. So yeah, I know him as well, and I can see that it wasn't like easy for him to start the conversation. We say hello to him, by the way. So yeah, but I think just having more of the pre-screening and putting a system in place in a sense that the head coach doesn't necessarily have to be present for all of these conversations, but we gather the data safely, we store the data safely, and then we nominate the person that can start the conversation and see how we can help people. When I worked with the women, that was, God, I don't remember the years, that was 2022, maybe.
It's difficult to remember. There's nothing that separates them.
Where Grace was there. Grace was, yeah, I'm sorry, we just keep winning. What can I say?
I think that was 22.
22.
Yeah.
And then I forgot what I wanted to say. But yeah, we did the pre-screening, and the beginning of the season that opened. Some of the women didn't want to talk about it, which is fine. Some of them open up to a point where we realized that we actually have two female athletes who were anorexic at the age of 12. And that came up in the screening, like at the beginning of the season. And that is nothing. Like these athletes, they were between open weight and lightweight. So imagine if we pushed them towards lightweights. We wouldn't have given them another story with anorexia, right? It's big. And more stuff came out. Like, honestly, the more we started talking about it, the more they realized that they can trust me. And it's all about building trust with athletes. And the stuff like they're not eating, Susie, that is so common. Like, I'm stressed, I'm not going to eat for like 5 days. We had that with women. I know. Can you like? I mean, we can't imagine that. Like, it happens more often than you think.
So much to do.
And the adrenaline carries you over until you just can't do it anymore.
Adrenaline and caffeine.
Adrenaline and caffeine is like,
it's bad,
yeah, woohoo, here we go, PB, and high estrogen, and there you go. That's the combination. So yeah, preventative measurements, definitely.
That's, like you said, like definitely, obviously, if you say predominantly male, if there's more male coaches and female coaches, like specifically having that conversation with an athlete might be difficult. But like if I put my coaching hat on and be like, okay, someone comes to me and be like, hey, we've got this way that we can make sure that your athletes are going to stay strong and powerful as long as they can, and you can make the most of them. And you're like, I'd be like, free speed, like bring it on. Mm-hmm. But like what you're saying is like, it's that putting that process in place.
It's like prehab and everything that we do. Can I advertise CBC Men? But we do lots of
podcast.
Yeah, we do lots of pre-screening with them, and I think that really shows when it comes to the point when it's like a month before the race and even little injuries come up. We know how to tackle them because we've been doing the prehab. We know the tools. We know how to get them from A to B. It's exactly the same with female athletes. You just have to pre-screen. You need to know who is a red flag and just keep an eye on them and keep checking on them. Okay, did you actually have breakfast? Like occasionally just ask someone because that just slips. And it's like, it comes in waves, right? Up and down.
And I think it's like having that awareness that to you, it may seem really straightforward to make sure you have balanced meals throughout the day, but someone else, their priority may be in something that's not related to nutrition. So I think it's having that awareness that just because you do it and it comes easily to you doesn't mean to say it will come easily to everybody. And I think that's quite a big one to be honest, in all areas, just having awareness that people think differently and people have different priorities.
I also think it seems that obviously pre-screen is important, but you kind of also said like, presumably because everything is such a case-by-case basis, you can't just do it once at the start of the season and be like, cool, covered. You're saying that like actually if you keep checking it, then you get to know where you are. And we talk about this a lot as well, like doing the sleeps 1 to 10 on your sleep and how you're feeling, and like the dehydration testing you do in the team, things like that. Like that's all about working out like where you are because you can't judge yourself off other people.
Yeah.
Like, it's like so.
Even like checking your heart rate every morning, things like that, it all adds up. Like if you've built like obviously a logbook of data, then you have at least something to work off. I think that's what Imogen said, that she had a training diary that was spanning like her literally entire career or something crazy like this, which doesn't surprise me at all. What does surprise me is that a DEXA scan or one of those pre-screen scans can show you what you were doing like 10, 12 years ago with the whole anorexia thing.
What do you mean?
No.
Like-
So that's just in the questionnaires.
Oh, that was from questionnaires.
Yeah,
Okay.
questionnaire.
I was going to be like, okay.
No. DEXA scan shows you like what you have, what's happening now.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I was so shocked to find out, but clearly.
Presumably, does it give you bone density?
It does.
Because
yeah.
is that not one issue of not having period, is that you reduce
Yeah.
bone density?
So the first thing that happens is the bone densities. That goes back before it was called RED-S. It was called female athlete triads. That was osteoporosis, lack of periods, and eating disorders. And then in 2014, the Olympic Committee got together and they've actually decided that, hold on, there's more to it. First of all, they expanded it by including male athletes. So it wasn't just the female, like, related problems. And they added some more components like social, economic, and just broadened the whole aspect of it.
That makes sense. So yeah, it's good to hear that you're screening all of the athletes at Cambridge. On a little bit of a less serious note, when you
Not for menstrual cycle this year.
no,
But we
not for menstrual cycle, but when you pre-screened George Bourne at the start of the season, what percentage of his body composition was comprised of baked beans?
Everyone's going after George at the moment.
Yeah, we actually, when we screened James Crefnell, he was quite actually high in muscle mass, and bear in mind he was the oldest in the whole squad. So I was very surprised how well he was doing, with all the respect. It's like, no, he was doing really well, like muscle mass, definitely. I'm sharing data. I shouldn't share data with you.
We've had nothing.
No specific numbers. I don't
Okay,
think anyone's going to be
High muscle mass, thank you.
Yeah. So I guess then, I guess for the wider, like the point that we're talking about this is to try and let the other people know, whether athletes, coaches, clubs, whatever it is, like what they could do to help stop this from happening in the future to future athletes, I guess.
Was that a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've been working on recently is actually putting a course together that you are able to download online. So I talk about everything that we basically covered. So nutrition, calories in, calories out, pre-screening, which is a big one for us. So you would be able to download all of that as like free, as sources, and use that at your club. So that will be available for everyone, and kind of explain step by step how. So before RED-S develops, you get into a state of low energy availability. So most athletes, when you actually look at how much they're eating, most athletes will be sitting there. And I think you mentioned that the last time we spoke, Tom, that like most people just don't eat enough. Most athletes, they think they do. But when you actually start logging how much you're eating, you could be eating much more. And that would actually be helping you rather than harming you. So yeah, and that's why we're actually talking about it today, because I'm not saying the course is perfect, but it gives you some solutions, and it's definitely pushing the conversation about training according to menstrual cycle a bit more forward, because it was trendy 3 years ago and now it come down again and no one talks about it because it's just not like, it's just
It's not a sexy
telling. Yeah, exactly, as well, but it's still there, and it's already starting with eating the right amount of food, because once we feed our athletes, then really the problems can be completely avoided. Obviously, like things in life happen and obviously stress happens, but that can still be, managed if we monitor our athletes and just talk to them, I think. Yes. Did I answer the question?
Yeah, awesome. So you can talk about it. Don't feel like you have to hold back. Like that's why you're here. Like we want to hear about
okay.
it. Like,
Tell us a bit more about the course,
Can I
man.
ask a question?
yeah, go.
You can always ask me a question.
So is that sort of like a package that you will sell specifically to rowing clubs?
Yeah, so it's really devoted to athletes, coaches, and people who actually work around training as well. So nutritionists, S&C. I mean, nutritionists will be much more aware of it. S&C coaches, or even parents who kind of don't know really what to feed their athletes when they grow up. So you can buy it online. There are videos, there is description, and you can download all of the bits that will help you with screening. And there are different sources as well that then you can use for that. But it basically explains how low energy develops, how RED-S develops, how to make sure that, you read the signs very early, so you don't get to the point where athletes are so low that they cannot compete.
So it's for the support team,
for the support
parent
team
staff.
Yeah, it could be
rather
for
than the athlete
athletes.
themselves.
Yeah. I think I would target the support staff, but I think it's a good information to have for the athletes themselves, because it all really depends on. I know you mentioned Imogen. Like, if some people are like, some athletes are really, really good at logging everything, some are not, and the ones that want to really dive into it a bit more, then it's definitely for them as well.
I think it's great that we've mentioned it before, but sort of like proactive as well as reactive support.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I was thinking how else we can bring the conversation about menstrual cycle and training adaptation to the public eye in a way that, oh no, I'm cramping and my tummy hurts, but more from the angle of training, adaptation, performance, and recovery. And yes, we know the symptoms, we know more or less how to manage them, but more how to highlight the fact that estrogen is high, and we can then train and we can then push at the highest. But then also, if you're not eating enough, your estrogen declines quite rapidly. So it's quite, yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Go ahead.
So
This is an open panel.
So obviously, if someone were able to have, blood test help from a physiologist, but can't speak physiologist, have that all sort of a complete, so to speak, support service available to them, that's fantastic. As you said, knowledge is power. Like, more information you have, the better you are able to know what's sort of going on. To an athlete who hasn't got that available, hasn't got private healthcare, or GP isn't going to do these tests, how would you be able? What's your advice on? What would your advice be to an athlete who thinks they may be struggling with low energy availability, RED-S, that aren't able to have this sort of backed up with the science and what their, blood tests are showing and things? How could you advise someone to know it's RED-S rather than, just being tired from training? Like, what would your advice be?
I think the easiest thing is to start logging what you're eating and actually seeing for yourself, even just for 4 days, one training day and one off day as well. It's very important to see, and actually start writing for yourself what you're eating, what you're consuming. That is usually the starting point of knowing if something is going on. Obviously, it's difficult to do it completely without guidance, but I think kind of awareness will really, technically, if you're training twice a day, you should be eating 6 to 7 meals a day, with the snacking. So if you're below that, even if you have only 3 meals a day, that's already not going to be enough if you're not snacking on top of that. Again, if you're under 18, then obviously write it down, show it to your parents, and kind of say, listen, I am worried, or show it to the coach. Again, it's kind of it's a difficult one. I wish I had more answers with that, but I think that's the easiest thing to do for yourself, even if you don't have any access. Again, if you're under 18, please speak to someone who's an adult about it, definitely, a coach or your parent or your guardian. But if you're above the age of 18, you would be able just to go to your GP and discuss these problems, even if the GP is not necessarily very open is maybe not the word, but maybe not aware much about RED-S. It usually will spark a conversation. They will have solutions for you. I think the worst thing is to kind of be left alone with it and not speak up to anyone.
And it doesn't, speaking up about it and telling someone you might have a problem or suspect there is something wrong with it, it doesn't necessarily mean you're weak, mentally weak, or you're a pussy or anything like this. So
it usually comes from the fact that we just don't eat enough, and it's just on that.
And I think it's important to mention, whilst we're chatting openly about it, that you don't sort of have to have skipped a meal or to sort of have a classified eating disorder to not eat enough. I think that looking back when I was training, even when I sort of come out of the RED-S or before the RED-S, there would be times where I was so tired from training, like I just wasn't hungry, and I knew I needed to eat, but I just couldn't eat because I couldn't stomach eating. If you're just on a really hard 2K or like God forbid a 5K, which I always found like the hardest to give down. Like the last thing you want to do sometimes is eat. So do you have any advice on how to navigate that? Because and then the other question I was going to ask was
Susie, one at a time.
Sorry.
I'm just hold that thought. Let me before I've got an answer for it in my head. So the hormone that suppresses your appetite is called ghrelin. And I remember because you reminded me last time. So it's absolutely normal that you don't feel hungry. I think it's very important to say, especially with endurance sports, your appetite is suppressed, and that is absolutely normal. What you need to do is to be very disciplined about delivering some sort of calories. In that situation, when you're in that moment where you feel like, I don't want to eat anything, liquid version. So it's either protein, shake. It doesn't have to be if you don't do supplementation, but what you can mix banana and oats and milk, just a liquid form. So it's about discipline because you're just not going to feel hungry. If you're already feeling like, I don't want to eat, then you're very likely just to go to bed and not do it. But then you're going to pay the price next day and then it's going to keep repeating. So it's more like discipline and saying to yourself, I need some calories in. I wish I had a more exciting answer to that, but that is the only beauty kind of smoothie liquid version. I used to work with swimmers, so in the morning with the first training, you're just not going to put anything in them in terms of they have to have food, but it has to be liquid version because some of them just wake up last minute and you're not going to give them toast because that's just not going to happen. So liquid version of food, definitely.
I think that's good advice, definitely. And I think that's another point that's important. I know, Susie, in your experience, it sort of maybe, like you said, completely stopped eating. But I think it's probably you or maybe Morgan or the three of us were sort of talking like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a certain event where you completely stopped eating. It's a case of if you're putting back in slightly less than you're taking out week on week on week, it's a huge accumulative effect, right?
And your body's not going to be cheated, obviously, because it needs to function. You need to wake up. You're still training. So what's it going to do? It's probably going to take, I could be wrong, but it's going to take those nutrients from somewhere else. Some muscle mass. Yeah. That's why bone density probably decreases because your body will find those nutrients and apply them to the bank account.
Go that far with bone density, but you will, your body is going to start using your muscle. There was another question I remember. Go.
Well, it's quite timely what Tom said about, it doesn't have to be there was one day where you didn't eat enough food or you're having a period of time where you struggled to eat. And I think that's quite relevant to sort of my story with rowing because I think I had a bit of a combination of the two where I had a prolonged period of time where I was just underfueled. And I also had a period of time where I had so much other stuff going on, I just forgot to eat. My question to you is if there's an athlete who, generally speaking, is properly fueled and is meeting their caloric needs, and is meeting those needs, if, say, there is a week or a day or, just a short period of time where those caloric needs aren't met, how long roughly would it take to recover from, say, a week of underfueling?
It's difficult to tell. I don't think I've got an answer to that, to be honest with you. I honestly don't know. I would have to have a look at research, what it says. Although I don't know if they do research because they would have to start someone for a week. So it's kind of difficult to tell.
Yeah, the ethics.
It's let's start me for a week and see what the answer is going to be. Yeah. So it's a tricky one to answer. I don't really have an answer to that. But I kind of, I can dig deeper and see. I think it's also very individual. And literally, I think what happens that long term, you will be able to know what's actually happening to your body if you don't eat for 5 days.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I guess, if it happens once, then it's obviously, not very nice for the individual.
Sure.
However, the flip side is if it's happened once, you perhaps know the signs to look out for in the future. Yeah. And maybe if you, react appropriately, hopefully it won't happen again.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is that if it happens once, it keeps coming back. Yeah. No, and I know I had athletes like that in stressful situation, they wouldn't eat for 5 or 6 days. So I know that happens. I think with that, a nutritionist and a sports psychologist would come into play. And again, we're talking about the scenario where we have everyone accessible, and I'm fully aware of that. That is not the luxury that everyone has. But I think talking about it, talking to the coach, talking to people around you, although I'm just thinking about female athletes, that female athletes tend to just talk about it and nothing really happens. Someone asked me what's the difference between like coaching males and females. And the thing that I've noticed, and that's my personal kind of observation, is that females just talk about stuff and nothing comes out of it. That's a big generalization. Whereas male athletes are more likely to vocalize things, even if it's health or just general what's happening with dynamics. So maybe with female athletes, very important to definitely talk to a coach or anyone who's got a little bit more of it, tools to kind of help you. Did I answer the question? I keep asking the question because I feel like I'm just talking so much again that I'm...
No, that's why we got you here.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's perfect. And Susie's asking really, really good questions as well. Which
You're a natural, Susie. You should try podcasting.
Yeah.
no, it's really good.
Sorry, I'm doing your...
No, at all, not at all. Like, that's what we want. No, it makes so much more sense coming from someone who's been through it.
I couldn't ask that question.
I'm just sitting there thinking, like, if only I was exposed to your knowledge when I was going through it, like maybe it would have changed the ending. But no, I could talk to you all day. I think it's really interesting. Your what would you say, program? Like your
my whole expertise is training according to menstrual cycle, but the low energy availability in Red S ties in, is that a word in English? Like with it very closely.
Yeah.
That I've figured out last year that actually it's better to try and maybe approach it from the nutrition point of view in Red S and then even open the conversation further about menstrual cycle.
But that's probably what starts it, right? So that's where you get to attack the problem at its cause.
Yeah.
And I just can't help but feel that as a coach, it must be quite hard for them to be able to differentiate between an athlete who is showing symptoms of REDS and an athlete who's showing symptoms of needing to have a few lighter days and recover from, I don't know, stress from an exam or, work or whatever it may be. And I feel like, the more knowledge they can have of being able to differentiate between the two, the better outcome it will be for the athlete.
Sure, definitely. And I honestly think that the screening, even this, I don't want to say stupid, but like simple questionnaire can give you so much information. And it can highlight who needs more help from you in terms of nutrition. And especially female athletes, the way we're wired with the endocrine system, we're so much more prone to depression. We're so much more prone to ups and downs in terms of how we feel because of the menstrual cycle, because how we're wired. So that should be included really in every program for female athletes, rather than pushing them and saying that we're toughening them up. We do, but I think naturally females are tough because of everything that we have to do.
We're a woman.
To do it in order.
We do all that.
Deal with us.
So yeah, toughening up, great. Let's do that. Let's help with food as well.
Yeah, I think the question is a really interesting point because you've mentioned a couple of times like how much information you can get from that. You don't need to have a nutritionist at your own club. You just have to have someone who can set up a Google sheet. Every club will have welfare officers. I think a lot of clubs now have welfare officers on men's and women's sides. I'm not sure that's for everyone, but I've been in clubs where that's the case. So like you said, even if it's a situation where it's not necessarily information you want your coach or everyone to have, like you should have a welfare officer that like should be away by just putting a form together to getting in front of this without it having to actually cost any money.
Absolutely. And if you also ask the right questions, you can see the thought processes that the athletes have. You can get them to start to think about these things on their own, just because how do I even answer that question? I've never approached it from that angle. And then, like you said, you can find out so much just even without having to use any technology.
So I also just thinking about it, like a lot of what we do on this podcast is talk about how we can have marginal gains, right? Different types of marginal gains. And as a coach, thinking about, can we do this slightly better? Can we do this slightly better? Almost everything we're doing, you're looking at like a couple of percent. And like, we're not talking about like a couple of percent of someone's performance. This is not like a marginal gain. This is like massive.
And
like
if
you get this
right. First of all, health, right, of your athletes.
Yeah. And like, if you can get this right, you're not like going to add a couple percent. you could be like adding, I don't know, but like a lot more than just like making sure that you're in an end packer, not a Stanley. Like these things are like, or like when we talked before about even like in the relevance to weight, there was someone who did the study on the coxing weight. A coxie weighs 5 kilos more over 2 kilometer range.
1 second.
It's like a second. Like getting this right with your squad, it's going to be worth more than a second.
And also, I think it's going to not only be worth more than a second, but as you just said, it's your health. Like rowing's not going to last forever, but your health stays with you for life. And I think it's very important to look after your health actually before like speed. But also like a happy, healthy athlete is a fast athlete too. So it's all kind of interlinks, I guess.
Performance shouldn't be mutually exclusive with health, exactly, because very much you go to the top level of sport and it's almost beyond the curve of what's considered healthy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe in this sport, not even at the top. In fact, we've had this conversation before. The idea of like what they have it in cycling, like the weeks off. I don't even know the name of it. A deload week. Like as if
taper. Do like, but what is it like? I even taper weeks. There's times I can look back and being like, I've still done like
deload weeks. Do you mean just pull your normal splits and just sleep a bit more?
Yeah, like it's like this. I don't know whether that's maybe
deload. What's that?
Yeah, exactly right. Like whether rowing is a smaller sport. Like obviously, it was physiologically we're quite similar to cycling. We've had people on here who've done a bit more professional, semi-professional cycling, and that is not uncommon to go out for a 3-hour ride and keep your heart rate below like 120. I was like, if my heart rate is 120 on the ergo, I'm getting smacked on the head by the coach, like we just didn't really train in that way.
I mean, this is going a bit off topic, but I saw a non-rowing friend, and we were out on a run. I mean, it was like a little sort of shuffle rather than a run, but we were just talking about heart rate. And, she's done, an Ironman, like she's a fit girl. We were talking about heart rate, and I was like, "Oh, what's the highest she's seen your heart rate?" She was like, "Oh, not high, maybe like 160, 165." She was like, "What about you?" And I was like, 206. It's just different, like kind of world, doesn't it? Like you just crazy. I appreciate everyone's heart rate is specific to them, and that's totally normal. But yeah, I mean, it was also in Shanghai, and it was like 1,000 degrees, and we just done a 2K, and I actually thought my heart was about to like come out. But it was funny how it's relative to sport.
I guess probably when your body's struggling with nutrition and is trying to make up for what you're lacking with that relative energy deficiency syndrome, your heart rate's bound to go up anyway. So your body will be working out.
Yeah. It's like when you're getting a cold, your heart rate variability goes high. I never thought of that, actually. Yeah.
Another reason for doing things like tracking your heart rates, which again is a free thing that anyone can do. All your athletes need to have is a training diary or like something where they just write down like that kind of stuff. Like, I guess like that's the point. So like my next question, I guess, lead on from that. It's like, what are the easiest things? Like you said, like for a club, to put to like the questionnaire or like the screening and those kind of things, but like from an athlete perspective, like what are some of the easiest first things?
I think it's logs as well.
Yeah,
it's honestly screening on both sides. Screening, which is much more detailed from the coaching staff, and screening for yourself, like as an athlete, and also tracking your menstrual cycle. That is a big one as well. So knowing when you're in high estrogen, when you're in high progesterone. So high estrogen gives you the readiness to train. I keep doing this, I'm sorry. The readiness to train, and you're able to push a bit more, and then high progesterone will slow down recovery. So once you track your cycle, then you kind of know why you're feeling how you're feeling. So that's another way of monitoring fatigue as well, and just looking at the training load and perception of training load as well.
Should you be tracking anything next to your menstrual cycle? So knowing which zones you're in, what should you then be looking at, depending on, or is that basically what's in the course?
That's going to be in the course as well. But I think for yourself, just look at what you're doing in the gym and dryland training, kind of how much you can lift in your high estrogen, high progesterone. My only worry was always that once you give that knowledge and people know that they're not able to lift this high in high progesterone, then naturally placebo effect comes in. It's like, oh, you're on high progesterone. I know you guys are not wired like that and it's not your style. Like, you keep pushing. But that is also another thing to kind of make people aware that you can compete at any stage of your menstrual cycle. You can do PBs at any stage. You just have to know how to, I don't like the word fuel because everybody's using that, how to optimize, but also how to optimize nutrition and what supplementation to take in the high progesterone to minimize the inflammation, and especially with the PMS, like 10 to 7 days before your period, to bring the inflammation down and allow your body to recover as fast as it can.
So let's say someone's listening to this right now and they are in their high progesterone cycle. What's like top 2 things that they should fuel that pump?
So zinc, magnesium, omega-3 that you can take from the diet, but you can always also supplement. BCAA is another big one. So it's one of the, actually 4 amino acids. And one of the biggest one is leucine that crosses the blood-brain barrier and it speeds up muscle protein synthesis. So it allows for the muscle to rebuild a little bit faster. If you're vegan or vegetarian, you can still get a fermented version of it. It's just that has to come from the powder. Yeah, that would be the biggest thing.
It's fascinating.
It's never been, isn't it? And no one wants my knowledge because everyone's like, oh, we have to make all of these changes. But it is, honestly, once you start breaking it down and you see, like, this is the difference, the 1% of you, like free speed that you guys talk about all the time. Like, this is it. But most of the time, where the male coaches were in charge, and not many of them will want to make the changes. And this is world, I understand, but still it doesn't mean that we should give up. And like, we have to voice, like, for female athletes, especially.
Still, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but I still generally think like most, like me as, a coach, I coach a squad of women. Like, generally the aim is the same. We all want the best. We all want the crew to move the fastest. So although like the information isn't there, I tend to think like most coaches would be like receptive to listening to it and like finding it out and like using it as a way to get a better performance out of their crew.
I think it's a good idea when you talk about it, but when you actually see how much work goes into it, not many of them will want to do it. Plus also, someone comes from the outside and takes quite a lot of power, I don't want to say, but like control over program percentage. So the coach has to be secure enough to allow that person to come in and make those changes, understanding that the person comes to help, not to take over the world.
I imagine not every club is going to be able to hire a specialist like this. So is there a way to streamline that process and sort of trickle it down to the athletes themselves?
Yeah, they should get that.
Yeah, they should
Get that app.
That hasn't been designed yet, but they'll get the app. Presentation is also another good thing. Like, you can get someone to come and do presentation and then also say, listen, do this, do that. And that can be done externally. And I'm also trying to step away from like working very closely with big group of athletes, because I already have a big group of athletes that I have to try and help. So like consultation, I think, is the best thing as well. You kind of come in, give solutions, and now I'm gonna ride away on my white horse. Let me know if you have any problems, but start implementing it as a club rather than waiting for someone to give you, from heaven and to give you all of the solutions. But I think just like guiding, giving the tools to monitor, and I think that will make a huge difference.
Yeah. You had someone come in at Leander, didn't you? Do a talk?
Yeah.
Did you have
Awareness.
The Well HQ?
Well HQ, yeah, they do quite a lot.
Yeah, no, it was great.
That's Emma Ross and Vaz.
Yeah, it was. I know Emma came. It was a while ago now, so I can't remember the names. But it was the Well HQ, and yeah, just it wasn't just stuff around menstrual cycle and energy availability, just like how to support your boobs in training.
Yeah, they
like
do. They do quite a lot, which is great, right? But also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like I remember, so I went to UKSCA conference, which is the UK Strength and Conditioning Association. Kind of big conference, you have it on annual basis, and Emma Ross was there, and she gave the talk, and it's great. But also pelvic health, I think, right? Yeah, boobs and menstrual cycle and red S, and it's all great because I knew about that. I think she was a little bit late, so there was like one question that people could ask, and the guy was like, "Okay, but what do we do about this?" So it's great, but absolutely still they have no knowledge, male coaches, about it. And then suddenly you throw everything at them, which is great. but they absolutely don't know what to do with it.
So which one do I go with? Like,
Honestly, boobs, bras here with menstrual cycle, and it is a lot. Like, it is, right? So it's great, but I still feel like we have to narrow it down, give them solution. Like, this is what you have to do. That's how you can support your female athletes. But, and I felt like these guys in that room, actually, it's so, again, male dominated with the UKSCA, more female coaches are coming in, but it's still like male saturated. And literally, I felt like them. I was like, that is a very valid question. What do we do with this?
like, where do you go from
Where do we go?
receiving this knowledge to actually implementing it?
Yeah.
What need like a roadmap, like off the back of it, and the kind of thing. Again, I think what was it, Morgan? You can't bring a problem without a solution.
Yeah.
You can't just say like this is a problem and be like, okay,
Yeah.
and what is our
boobs, hips, and I was like, what do we do with this? Because it can be, I mean, it is overwhelming, right? In the sense that you have an athlete, and we're trying to, obviously, don't think about the gender differences in a way that, oh yeah, we train them the same. But even when you think about males, male athletes, you still have to narrow down the training for individual. We had a moment when we worked with rugby, can I say rugby clinic? For the clinic that I work at Makona. And even for them, you have position-specific training. You have injury-specific training. So why can we not do that for menstrual cycle? We can do that. It's just a matter of being much more efficient at organizing.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of knowledge now floating around, but what we're lacking is like practical implementation steps, like you said, the roadmap. So, for example, you're talking a lot about, Gosia, if you were to have that specialist guidance in your team, then some of the program would have to change. Let's imagine a scenario where you're looking after a squad of, let's say, 10 athletes. How would that process look like? So that people can understand that there is this knowledge. Now they're aware of it. What can they do to implement it?
Honestly, it's just screening. Honestly, it is just screening at this stage, because even if you don't have anyone working with you who specifically is a specialist, who is a specialist in that area, if you don't screen, you don't have the data. I honestly think now that I'm talking to you guys and you're like saying all of these things, that it's literally screening. Because from there, you can then decide how much resources you have and where do you actually take it, how far you can go with it. Okay, GP, fine. At least we have a GP. At least we have someone that we can talk to. Can we get a nutritionist? Can we actually consult with a nutritionist? We've got this athlete with a problem, that athlete with a history of a difficult relationship with food. So I think I found a solution, guys. It's screening.
Okay, so screening is step one. You have the data. You have the data from all of your athletes. I want all the steps, because there's a lot of people going to be listening to this and like, yeah, exactly that question. But what do we do about this? So, okay, cool. We've got the screening. We've got the data.
We monitor.
How do you then use that data to sort of individualize the program for each athlete?
I wouldn't even go that far with individualizing program. Like at this stage, let's just see what is the relationship with food for these athletes. And I think this is number one. If you don't have anyone else who's going to be working with you on that specific topic, just start with that. Make sure they're eating enough. Make sure that they know that after training, they're not going to be hungry. And this is absolutely normal. So you have to be disciplined to eat. And I think this is where we should really start. So more steps, there are more steps to come, but there come with resources, right? And like the availability of other coaches and nutritionists and people who could come in.
Also, like definitely, like from the other perspective, there's a lot of clubs where they're not looking after 10 athletes, they're looking after 60, 80, 100, and and they're just trying, if anyone who's coached or been in a program like that, like it's just like, can I get everyone on the water and do some sort of session in the amount of time that we have before everyone has to disappear and do different things again?
Otherwise, I think careers, that kind of thing. Exactly.
I think the logging also happens off water, right? Like the tracking happens off water. So I think
it'd be like an athlete trapping.
I think you can, individual, like it's up to you, like individually as well. But usually if it's led by the coach, they are going to do it. Right?
Yeah.
They are going to do it.
I think also when it's led by, don't get me wrong, led by a coach, great, but also when it's led by other athletes, like when you see your teammates, with their recovery shake immediately after training or whatever, you think, oh, I need to do that. Yeah. That person, by doing that, they might be faster than me. Like, I think there's a knock-on effect. And when I look back on like early days of rowing, I remember one day in particular, I'd been rowing for like a year. I was a novice rower, went to Henley Women's Qualifiers, and we qualified to race at Henley Women's, and we were like, oh my God, this is amazing, like best day ever. Got on the minibus to come back to Oxford, and like none of us had eaten. And the men's squad had said, if you qualify, we'll cook you dinner. We were like, all right, cool. So we thought, oh, we're having dinner in a bit. We don't need to eat now. Anyway, when they came over to cook for us, they were like, right, so what do you want? Like, what have you already eaten? We were like, we haven't eaten any. And they were like, what? You haven't eaten any food? Like, you got to eat straight away. And I think, going back, this was 10 years ago. Oh, you blogged them out. God, like, yeah. I mean, it's a bit long. It was such a long time ago. Like, and it's quite, in some ways, quite like refreshing to see that this knowledge is being shared, because back then it wasn't available to us at all. We weren't aware.
Are there female physiology like reasons as to why women might be less hungry than men after sport, or is it just like it's just open for anyone?
No, like not many athletes use the metabolic window. We talked about the metabolic window.
It's like 30 minutes after training and juice.
But depending on the source, but like more or less up to 30 minutes that you have to replenish the protein and carbs, and then have a meal.
Oh, I missed that.
And have a meal. You missed that window, guys.
I don't know why that just sticks to me, that story, but yeah, they were just out.
No, it's a good story, or it's a real story as well. Yeah,
but like none of us had, so yeah, we didn't see it as a problem. So that's the point I'm trying to make. I think like when everyone does something, hopefully when it's a healthy behavior, it's infectious, isn't it? Everyone starts doing it. So I think athlete-led and coach-led is
definitely both sides. Yeah, definitely.
So what's the timeline on the app you're building?
It's not the app.
Or
wait, that's right. So
program, whatever. Course is the right word. Sorry. So what's the?
I'm glad we just met.
I also can't talk either.
So it's a course that you can download from so you get access to it. You can buy it from our website, from like the clinic, and it gives you buy it once, and then you get access to all of the videos where I explain, or I talk more, where I explain how to prevent low energy availability, how it happens, what are the consequences of not looking after athletes from that point of view. I talk about menstrual cycle. I talk about macronutrients a bit more, supplementation according to menstrual cycle as well, so how to tackle PMS. And then you can download the screening kind of questionnaire, pre-season, post-season, so that's all available. So yeah, that's going to be on the website, and it's not an app.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I just thought I'm going to wrap it in more.
And would a coach or whoever organises that side of things at the club, would they purchase that for the whole club to use, or is it for...
That's the thing. It doesn't have to be like, you can buy it as a club. And I think we spoke about it when the idea was born in my head. I was like, Piotr, what's your do with this? And it doesn't matter. A club can buy one and then everyone can have an access to it. I mean, it's not like I'm going to make $1 million out of it. That's not the whole idea of it.
Well, maybe after the tariff, there's going to...
You never know. Right? But like we just want to see what the response is, but it's more like getting out there and like, this is what I do. There's more that I can help you with, but just try this, see if you can make changes and see if it helps your athletes. Yeah. So yeah.
And obviously the important question is, I'm just sitting here thinking, okay, so I'm a guy who rows. Is there any use for me to go and buy that course?
For you as a guy?
Yes.
No. I mean,
as a coach?
Yes. As a coach, yeah.
But as a male athlete?
Male athlete, you could spend your money better because it's not specific to you.
Right.
So it's mainly for female athletes, I would say. Because we talk about the female athlete triads and that's kind of all tied up with menstrual cycle as well. So you can, but I can direct you to something that's going to benefit you.
I think that's good because it's a very niche, tailored, specific for female athletes program. And you can't just pick like, I don't know, 20% of it. Okay, that's applicable to me. Like, no, this is like been written specifically like with you in mind.
I would even say female rowers, female like endurance will benefit from that. But I specifically targeted female rowing athletes.
Although I do,
And coaches.
yes, and coach, no, I do.
For female athletes, yeah.
Having when we talked about last time about female health and the endocrine system and those kind of things, which I find quite interesting anyway, like biomechanics in a way. I like fixing cars, but this is like fixing people. It's a weird thing. It's like applicable in the same way, you know what I mean? It's very interesting in that sense.
Yeah.
But no, when I learned that your women's hormone levels can go up and down by 7 times every month.
I can't believe that. I didn't write
Like,
that. We were
exactly.
Imagine what we're going through.
I'm like, yeah.
30 days. You
Why-
guys never experienced that.
Absolutely. On my point, whenever, say, maybe my wife's like a bit of tension or whatever, and then I sort of think in my head, oh yeah, like imagine if your testosterone was going up and down by 7 times, like every 4. Like, yeah. It's like just knowing, like, just that, like, one piece of information, I feel like makes me a lot more understanding. So, like, there is things to be learned from.
Sorry to interrupt you, but it can be even in everyday supplementation makes a huge difference in knowing what to eat in your high progesterone. I even see it with myself. It makes a huge difference when you supplement and when you know how and when. Like even I can control my mood is maybe not, but it doesn't affect me as much. I can manage. Yeah.
Less peaks and troughs and more.
Doesn't.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Although people that know me, they will say that's not the truth. But I am trying. I'm trying. So it does make a difference.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Is there anything else you want to talk about before we finish? Any other questions, Susan?
Thanks for sharing your story with us, Susie. I know it's not easy because you have to kind of open that box and go back to how you felt.
No, I think it's important to share. I think for me, it's not easy to share because I feel like growing feels like yesterday, but also feels like a lifetime ago, all in the same breath. And so much has happened since. So I'm always happy to share my story. But just apologies if it came across a bit disjointed.
No, it made sense. I can, yeah.
You gave us all the pieces.
See, yeah.
You gave us all the piece of the puzzle to understand the context. Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I have a question for Gosia. And where would you like to see the sport move on sort of within the next 5 years? What would you like to see as someone who's an expert and is leading this sort of movement, especially like from the rowing
Just
standpoint?
saying that.
I mean it.
Oh, thank you.
No, I mean it. What would you like to see? How would you like to see the sport evolve over the course of the next 5 years or something? What changes at the club level, at the athlete level, at the governing body level?
Definitely the awareness of menstrual cycle as a training period is in a training periodization way, and looking at the model that's been based on male data and developing the model towards female athletes and acknowledging your endocrine system. And I know the people that work with female athletes, and I think it was even Emma Ross as well, that said that she doesn't believe in training according to menstrual cycle, meaning adjusting the training, the load to menstrual cycle. But I know where is that coming from is because there is so much that has to be done within the nutrition that is not covered. So even going into that niche of training according to menstrual cycle, like it's too early. And I think that's what she meant because I actually asked her a question in the end. But I would like to see that we are actually starting to program in a way that we acknowledge what's happening with endocrine system, and we use the windows of opportunity with high estrogen, and we acknowledge the fact that if our athletes are on high progesterone, we supplement them, and it doesn't have to be supplementation, we give them the right food. But really, I would like to see the shift with I'm drawing it on the table now. I would like to see the shift from stepping away from the training periodization that's been based on male data, the 6-8 weeks, and adjusting the mesocycles a little bit more towards the estrogen surge for females. That is my dream. And also screening.
The buzzword.
Look at the buzzword.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the direction that we could go into. I guess what you're saying, especially like what Emma said about nutrition, we shouldn't like adjust the training yet because we've not covered nutrition. It's like a little bit like playing about with the gate heights on your boat whilst there's a massive gaping hole that's like sinking water.
Yeah, no, honestly, yeah. And like it doesn't mean that I totally agree with it. I think we should try and do it as well, but I understand the thinking behind it that it might be too early. Like remembering that question. Okay, so what do we do with all of that? Like we talked about boobs and hips and menstrual cycle, and what do we do with it? So this is what we do. We screen, we make sure that our athletes eat enough, and we don't wait until the point where they're so low that, we have to peel them off the floor. I think that is what I would like to see.
I also think, like, even from, I think this is right to think, or if I put it in terms of like different ways that I've trained, like, even if, like we were saying, a massive club, the program can't change. Like, if you have that knowledge yourself, and if you've been doing, been looking after your heart rate and things like that, just in the same way that you can target certain sessions or not target sessions, or, we would do, say, half-hour rate 20 on a Wednesday was a very common thing. But, like, if you knew you weren't feeling great, or you had a bit of a cold, or your heart rate is up a bit, you could be like, cool, I'll just kind of tick over on this one. I won't push. And, like, knowing when to push and when to hold back within yourself, even in a program that maybe isn't flexible, is still going to have a huge benefit. And doing this is like something that can help you do that.
Definitely. It's a very important thing that you said. I mean, we're saying a lot of important things here, but the kind of perception, I know everyone is used to keep pushing, you have to keep pushing. But if you keep pushing on a day where not much is going to come out of it other than the mental toughness, then, like, you're going to come back stronger if you recover, like, on that day, and just go a little bit less. You're not going to go 100%. Next day, you're going to come back, you can only be your 100%. But if you keep, like, pushing when you're feeling low, then that's just a train to nowhere, really.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think in most of our testing, like, obviously final trials or Henley Royal Regatta, you're going to want to perform whatever's happening.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of Saturday morning pieces, Wednesday afternoon, half hour, or like whatever training we do, which can, on the face of it, seem like a big important, oh no, everyone's going to be watching, like we're going to be on the timing. You're like, yeah, but if I take this one easy, and that means that I'm doing better the week after the week after the week after, then if I'm doing much better in 8 weeks' time, no one's going to give a shit how I did in this one. I think that, for me, that was something that I struggled with a lot as an athlete, just being like not every single piece, it has to be done till you die.
Yeah.
And like, there are more efficient ways to get better at rowing than just doing my hardest every time.
I noticed the biggest shift in my training consistency and my performance when it counted, so like testing, racing, whatever, when I approached a training block as I want to do 100% of the training at 80% rather than 80% of the training at 100%. And like that really kind of helped navigate a training block for me. Like, you don't need to do everything at, the highest possible sort of effort level.
Especially if you can look at your feedback and be like, this is not a good time for me to be doing this.
We're not encouraging anyone not to push. I just wanted to make that very clear. But if we have all of this data, right, listen to your body a little bit more and just do what you can on that day without sacrificing your health. I think that is the message really as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can rev the car in whichever gear you're in, but there's a certain gear progression that will get you to go faster in the long run. So there's no point trying to tire yourself out in second gear and thinking about what that athlete in fourth gear is for. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a long game. It's a long endurance event. It takes us, we have to do a lot of that base training to get the high end speed. So like, you can't change things in a day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, obviously, if you want to learn more about this, get Gosia's course. We'll link the course and all the links, relevant information to that in the description.
We'll definitely share it and stuff when you're ready. We'll make sure we share some links and all that.
Awesome. Thank you.
100%. No, I mean, it's just hopefully this is going to like become the base of how we approach training and physiology, and actually come to terms with the fact that we can't train men and women in the exact same way, and we should be a little bit more understanding towards certain different physiological differences. And I just hope that we get to see a lot more of that theory and knowledge put into practical application that can then be very easily digestible by even people who are new at the sport. So hopefully all of that's covered in the course. Get that, and then let's see. Would you give us also feedback and see maybe this has improved your training? Maybe some of the advice you found that was particularly inspiring. Share that in comments or in messages and with others, and let's push each other on.
Yeah,
cool.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
That was fascinating. Again, I think amazing to have both of you. Susie, you're doing such a good job at asking questions as well. And like talking about, no, don't. Like, it's amazing. No, we just sat here being like, it's such a great question. I think the combination of you two together was perfect. And I think, people are going to get a lot out of this for sure. So I'm really happy we did it. And I find it fascinating. I think like I said, this is not a marginal gain. This is like a big gain.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Cool. I think that concludes everything for today's episode. So on that note, easy there.
Cue the music.